Okay, part 15. Who the fuck did I marry? So, in December of 2020, around beginning of December, we had a conversation, kind of a come to Jesus heart to heart conversation. And both of us had grown up in the church, and the fact that we were not married but living together, the fact that almost had a baby together, um, bothered both of us. Both of our families, my family and his family, um, were very adamant. Like, okay, y'all either need to get married or y'all need to separate. Um, and so I'm walking around with a ring on, which I'll post a picture of the ring because God, there's so much to unpack. But anyway, walking around with the ring, and so he said to me, "Whatever I need to do my part to make this work, I'm willing to do." At the same time, it wasn't that I did not trust him as much as it was I felt like I wasn't trusting myself. Because, again, like I said in the previous video, I know what I saw, I know what I read, I know what I've heard, but fuck, something was not sitting right with me. And every time I would question it in my head, the other side of me was like, okay, you know he ain't lying about the money because you saw it. So you know he ain't lying. Girl, are you that? Like, I remember saying to myself, are you that jaded that you don't even know what it's like to have a decent man? Yes, I really had the audacity to have that thought. So we agreed at the beginning of December, like, we wanted to be together. I believe I loved him. I believed he loved me. So the decision was made that we were going to get married. It's still COVID, so we had to follow certain protocol. So we filed our marriage license in Fayette County, Georgia, because you could not get an appointment in Clayton County to save your life. So we filed the marriage license in Fayette County. On our marriage license, it asked the number of previous marriages. He said 1, I had 0. It asked for our social security numbers. He put his social security number down. I put my social security number down. I mentally wrote down his social security number, and I did a background check. I did a background check after I had filed a marriage license. Yes, I know, but I did. The background check, nothing came back. It was like no results found. I did a criminal background check, nothing came back. So I thought one of two things. Either I had the wrong social, meaning I wrote down the wrong social, or my paranoia was unfounded. There's nothing wrong with him because he has been always throughout the relationship a big stickler about law enforcement, following the law because his dad was a retired police officer. So this is a guy who would check to make sure my tail lights were working, make sure my signals were working, make sure my oil was good, make sure I had enough gas in the car. So when the criminal history came back with no results, I was like, well, of course there isn't, because the man probably hasn't had so much as a speeding ticket. So we filed the marriage license, and then we made an appointment to get married, and waiting for the judge to come out of chambers so that she could marry us. And the reason why I'm pausing is because, my God, if I could go back and see that young woman sitting in that lobby. Wow. I know we can't go back in time, but damn, if I could go back in time, I would. I didn't tell anyone I was getting married because I was afraid that we had tried before in September and something came up. So I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to get anyone's hopes up. I didn't want to get my hopes up. I know that's bad, but again, said I would be honest even if it's ugly. I told my mom, my family that we got married, told my friends, they could not believe it. My mother was relieved, but she had no idea about what was going on. My aunt was more like, really? You married him? My friend, the one who took me to the hospital for the miscarriage, was like, I wish you would have told me, like, you deserve to have people there, take pictures and celebrate and all this other stuff. And she was like, she's the type of friend, if you like it, I love it. You rock with him, I rock with him. The moment you don't, I don't either. So she was supportive. My other girlfriends were happy for me. They just hated that I had to get married during COVID. Because they were like, we would have loved to have, thrown you a bridal shower and a bachelorette party and all of that. It just sucks that you couldn't experience that. So we got married on a Tuesday. On the way home, stopped and got some wings. Went home and I had to get ready to go to work the next day. And life. I got married January 5th. By January 31st, I knew I was in trouble. I still didn't know how deep, but I knew I was in trouble. So, to give you all a very, very, very candid idea, got married January 5th. The normal things that married newlyweds do, when we got married, completely stopped. And that was not by me. You always hear men talk about, man, now that we're married, she don't. In my case, it was the exact opposite. It was the exact opposite. So, anyway, because this is not a forum to be all R-rated or whatnot, but y'all get what I'm saying. So, we got married January 5th. January 6th, I went to work. It was a lot of people congratulated me because word got out that I had gotten married. January 7th, I filed the paperwork to change my last name. And if you were following me, you can go back like 15, 16 videos, and I talk about how I had to change my name back to my maiden name. But I changed my name within about 3 days of getting married. My attitude was, this is the bed that I made. I'm going to do right by him. I'm going to do right by my marriage. I took marriage seriously. And when I married him, I absolutely married him thinking, I'm going to be with you for the next 40, 50 years. So we're going to have to figure this shit out. That was my mindset. I did not get married to turn around and be divorced in 6 months. But I got married January 5th, 2021. And by January 31st, I knew I was in serious trouble. So that is where we are. The next set of videos, the next set of all this will be me talking about how things went downhill before it crashed and I found everything out. In the meantime, tomorrow is my birthday. So, happy birthday to me. The fuck did I marry? This is the interlude, basically. I'm not recapping on this video. I'm just kind of answering some stuff that has been written to me. Someone was like, why are you airing your business out on social media? It's a valid question. For me personally, I feel like this was traumatic to experience, to live through. And I'll expound on that on another video, the aftermath of the toll that this took. Honestly, I know some people are going to be like, that sounds crazy. It is kind of cathartic to get this out because I cannot tell you how much of this has been internalized since 2020. Also, I don't want to seem like a cautionary tale to other women or to men for that matter, but to my sisters, to my ladies, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. If something does not sit right with you, investigate it. I cannot stress that enough. If just one woman watches these videos and she's like, you know what, something don't sit right with me, let me look into this, then it was worth it. Yes, it is a Lifetime movie. Yes, it is Netflix. Yes, it is crazy. Yes, it is hilarious also. And I understand all of those reactions. As someone who lived it, it was traumatic. But I feel like, God, it feels good to finally admit what the fuck I went through. And again, by the time this is uploaded, I'm only to January of 2021, right after getting married. So when I think back on it, there's things that I'm very, very grateful for. There are things that I'm just like, why did you not pay attention? Why did you not question? And the sad part is, I can't even begin to tell you. I don't remember the woman I was before I met that man. I don't remember. Because going through something like that, it changes you. And I've seen some women in the comments who were like, I was married to a habitual liar. I was married to a pathological liar. My baby daddy's a pathological liar. And my heart goes out to them because until you have dealt with someone so depraved, you really don't quite know how bad it can get. So I'm fully aware that this was a risk, putting this out on social media, telling my story, my truth, and really kind of being like, look, this is what I went through. I made dumb decisions. I overlooked things I should not have overlooked. I argued away things I should not have argued away. I can pinpoint exactly the moment I should have left. I still feel like God is sitting on the throne and he's like, I never planned for your monkey ass to marry him. I never even planned for you to go out and date with him. That's why I blew your tire. But you hard-headed and you went anyway. And then I tried to go ahead and show you signs. You ignored them. Like, I feel like God did everything to help me as his child be like, this is not who I created to be your helpmate. And I was like, God, you taking too long. I want to get married. You taking too long. I want to have a family. You taking too long. And these are the consequences that I am paying for basically telling God, you took too long. And I feel like God's grace is sufficient. It is. But at the same time, and I'm not perfect. I mean, not perfect at all. None of us are. But I do feel like when I sit back and I replay the events that happen, I truly cannot believe that was my story, because all I wanted was to meet a guy, for him to be my best friend, for us to get married, have a family. I wanted someone I could make fun of his big old forehead, and he make fun of my nappy head and all my wigs, and yet he was my ride or die. I wanted someone that I could be like, man, help me with these kids, and he helped me with the kids. We had a nice home. We were comfortable. That is what I wanted. And I've said this before, and I say it again. I truly thought, I truly hoped it was my turn. You see the women who are, so happy, and, they're in these loving marriages and life just looks good. I really, really wanted it to be my turn. And so I excused away a lot of stuff that I hope the next woman who sees this does not excuse, because I don't wish this on anybody. I don't wish this on anyone, to feel the way I felt the moment I discovered the whole truth. So I just wanted to say that, because I think it's important to try to answer the why is she posting this? Honestly, I was tired of holding it in. I was tired of holding it in. And I hope it helps somebody. Okay, let's all take a deep breath. Let's all get some sleep. If you don't have anything to do and you just want to wish me a happy birthday, wish me a happy birthday tomorrow, February 15th. Shout out to Team Aquarius. Good night, y'all. Part 17, who the fuck did I marry? So, for context and just to clarify some stuff, going forward, I'm going to now call my ex-husband, I'm going to use the name that I call him in real life. So that way it clears up the whole fiance, boyfriend, husband, ex-husband thing. So, his name is Legion. Anyone that knows me will tell you that is what I call him. So Legion and I, when I left off at part 16, part 15, Legion and I got married January 5th of 2021. For the first 2 weeks, things were fine. We got into like a routine, basically. I would go to work, he would go to work. He was still leaving the house at around 6:15 every morning. He was still on the phone with his brother, the one that lived in Philly, every morning. That was their time to talk. From what I was told, the brother got off work. I guess he must have worked the third shift. And so he was getting off work as Legion was getting ready to go to work. So that was the perfect time for them to talk. He would talk to his brother in Baltimore and the brother in Augusta. Pretty much, just a quick phone call here and there, if not every day, every other day. So everything was pretty much the same. I would talk to my mom almost every day. I would talk to my aunt almost every day. So it was nothing to kind of, that's weird. That's what the morning routine was. He would talk. So I worked at Georgia State Patrol. And I said this in a previous video, but again, there were things I said in previous videos that I remember saying, hey, remember that, because it's going to come back later. So I worked at Georgia State Patrol. I had been working there for almost 8 years, 7 or 8 years by the time Legion got into the picture. He was fine with the fact that I worked within law enforcement. I'm not a trooper. I'm not a sworn officer. I'm a civilian. However, again, his dad was a retired police officer. So he was perfectly fine in the beginning with the fact that I worked for Georgia State Patrol. He had been to my office before. He had met some of my co-workers. Obviously, even with COVID, because I still had to go into the office 2 or 3 days a week, he had been up there. So the friend who took me to the hospital when I had my miscarriage has met him. He and I have been to her home with her and her significant other before. So again, even in the world of COVID, when there were little times where you could get together with people, he has met people in my life. He has met my friend, or that particular friend, and he has met some of my coworkers. So when we got married, the first 2 weeks, like I said, was fine. And then it's as if something snapped. Something just changed. What was totally acceptable before, suddenly little comments were made. Why are you wearing that to work? You get off at 3:30, so you'll be home by 5, right? Things that had never happened before. He had never questioned what time I'm gonna be home. Really, he didn't need to question it, because when I'm off work, I leave. So it was never a situation of, oh, I'm gonna just sit around at work and just run my mouth because I have nothing to do. And then it turned into, he would call me every day from work, and I'm going to demonstrate how those phone calls went, but he would call me every day from work. And if he even so much as heard a male voice in the background, he would have little comments to me. Who was that? Are they in your office? You know, man, I never know who's around you, because it seemed like every time I call you, I have the hiccup, sorry. It seems like every time I call you, there's some man around. And I'm just like, at first I kind of shrugged it off. I laughed it off because it really truly was absurd to me. But then it became a bit more frequent. And so I really just didn't feed into it, because I'm like, I don't know if this is some insecurity. I don't know if this is jealousy, because nothing has ever been done to make you feel any sort of insecure type of way. I've never entertained another guy, never flirted with another guy. Like, I don't know where this is coming from. So it is also important to note, we got married January 5th. Things started changing around 2 weeks later. And the reason why I know it's 2 weeks is because I had recorded an audio diary on January 21st is the date of the audio diary. And I talk about how maybe I had unrealistic expectations, because it seemed as if things were changing with he and I. So 2 weeks pass. He starts making little comments. End of January comes, he informs me that he wants to start looking for a house again. I had no real desire to go through that process. So what he decides is that he's going to look for a house for us using his friend, the realtor, the one I did not meet. So he tells me that he and his friend have been talking, and he's going to start looking at houses. And what he's going to do is basically, if he feels like it's a house I would like, then he wants to show it to me, because he feels like, I know that your attitude really isn't, you're in the mood to look for a house. So I'm going to start looking. And then if I think it's a great house, then, you can come see it. And I remember thinking, that's not going to work. You're not going to choose a house without me. And he was like, no, I'm not going to choose the house, but I just think that, me and old boy have been talking. And so he has some houses that he is representing. He wants to show me. So why don't you let me look at it? And if it's worth the time, then I'll bring you to look at it. So he already had some sort of plan in place after talking to his friend about how he's going to start looking at houses. This is the end of January 2021. So I kind of threw my hands in the air and was just like, whatever, because I'm not getting emotionally involved in looking at houses. And for me, that's kind of what it was. I felt like I would see a house, I could picture us living there, and then it gets snatched away somehow, some way. I didn't want to go through that. So the reaction that he wanted, which was for me to throw a fit, I did not do. I was just like, okay, all right, like I trust you. And remember that I said the reaction he wanted because that's going to come back later. So he started looking at houses. Funny enough, the houses that he looked at, none of them I actually saw. But he would call me and say, I'm at this house in Sandy Springs with the realtor friend. Apparently his realtor friend's name was Scott, not to be confused with the other Scott, the one that was actually helping us that dropped us as clients. I want to make that clear. There were two Scotts. One is the realtor who was representing us, who said, hey, I need proof of funds. If you don't have those proof of funds, I cannot show you any more houses. The other Scott is his friend who he had talked to on the phone at least 50 to 100 times in front of me. That's the Scott that he said is going to show me this house in Sandy Springs. Apparently the house was like $800,000. So he was like, I think that if I like the house, then I'm gonna bring you out here so you can see it. All right. Now let's go into part 18. Okay, part 18. Who the fuck did I marry? So he starts looking at houses in Sandy Springs, Alpharetta area with his friend Scott. I did not see any of these houses. I did not go. I didn't want to go. So what was starting to change is, remember I said before, he would leave the house every day at around 6:15. He would be home every day between 3:30 and 4 o'clock without fail. It was so, I shouldn't say it was annoying, but I could set my clock by the fact that I would hear that garage door open between 3:30 and 4 o'clock every day that he went to work. Even during lockdown, he still had to go to work. His job was only locked down for maybe a week. For me, I was allowed to work from home, but unfortunately, I did not handle it well. And so I would fall asleep and not check email. So my boss was like, yeah, you're going to have to come back to the office because you're not trustworthy. And I wasn't. I mean, I would watch Netflix and not even be on my computer. So I had to start going back to work every day, 5 days a week. And I was, me and another lady were the only two in there because we were the only two who did not handle work from home properly. Anyway, that's another story. So Legion he started to not come home by 4 o'clock. He started to come home 5, 5:30, 6, 6:30, sometimes 7 o'clock. Because he was saying that he was looking at houses after work with his friend Scott. So it definitely was noticed that things are changing. And at this point, kind of emotionally and mentally, I was just like, I don't know what to do. This is the end of January. Remember, I told you in part 15, I got married January 5th. By January 31st, I kind of knew I was in trouble. And by the end of January, sure enough, I knew things were changing in a way that I was like, I hate to sound redundant, but what the fuck is going on? So he's still maintaining the story of looking for a house, looking for a house. I had already let him know my lease is up in August. When my lease is up in August, I am moving to Cobb County. And then my attitude was kind of like, you can go with me or you can stay here. I don't care, but I'm moving. I'm leaving Clayton County. The reason why I was so adamant to move was not because of Clayton County. It was not because of the house that I was in. It was because Legion had started to create this narrative that he was beefing with my female neighbor. He was trying to get me to believe that my female neighbor to the left of me somehow was interested in him. And so she would make these little comments, and he would come in the house complaining about her and her music and the fact that she had, different men over to the house. It was driving me crazy. And all of this was kind of starting in January. So when I say that, it really seems like we got married January 5th, and then we had 2 weeks of peace, and then something just snapped. I literally mean something just snapped. So he's looking at houses. Now we're moving into February. February obviously is my birthday month. He did good. He did good to make Valentine. He went all out for Valentine's Day. He went all out for my birthday. My birthday and Valentine's Day are February 14th and February 15th. So he went all out on both days. Y'all ain't even gonna believe this story. But I said I would share even when it makes me look bad. So, the weekend after my birthday, and what I mean by that is if my birthday was on a Tuesday, we're talking about Saturday. The weekend after my birthday, he gave me money to go to the nail salon, go get a manicure and pedicure. So I leave the house. I take his car. His car was in the driveway. We had a key to each other's car because, again, we're married at this point. We're talking February 2021. So I take his car and I drive to the nail salon over in Morrow. I'm in the chair getting a pedicure, and I get a text message from my husband saying, someone was just at the house looking for you. And I'm like, who was looking for me? Who was it? And he said, I don't know. I think it was some, this is through text. I don't know. I think it was some dude you used to mess with. Okay. I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, I'm telling you, some guy just came to the house looking for you. I told him you were not here. So at this point, y'all, I'm in the chair at the salon. I'm freaking out because I'm like, who the fuck has the audacity to come to my home unannounced, uninvited, talking about they're looking for me? Especially because before I met my husband, I was working the last shift at Amazon as a part-time job. So I had not dealt with, dated anything with anyone for about a year before I met him in March of 2020. So I really was like, who the hell is this coming to my house? So I finished the pedicure. I head home. Once I get home, I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened? And so I'm frazzled in a way. And he's calm. He was like, yeah, it was a black Dodge Charger. They pulled into the driveway. They backed in. They backed in as if they had been here before. So clearly this was someone who's been to your house. He got out the car. He said, I opened the door and I went out there and I said, is there something I can help you with? And he said, the guy said, I'm looking for, and gave him my name. And he said, I'm sorry, she's not here. And he said, he was like, oh, okay. All right then. And just got in the car and drove off. And I was like, my brain stopped working because I'm thinking, who the heck could this be? A Dodge Charger? I was like, are you sure that it wasn't law enforcement? Like, was it the sheriff's office trying to serve me with a lawsuit for a credit card I didn't pay? He was like, no, he was in regular clothes. He was like, and it was not a police car. It was on a marked unit, basically. And so I'm just like, who the heck could this be? And he was like, I know who it was. And I said, who? He was like, I think it was your ex. I said, what ex? He was like, the one that you had dated for 2 years. Remember back in like part 3, part 4, I told y'all he told me about his ex. I told him about mine. I thought we were being honest with each other. So now fast forward to February 2021, and he's telling me, yeah, I think it was the ex that you had been dealing with for those 2 years before you met me. I said, so you think that he showed up to the house uninvited after 2 years? And he was like, well, whoever it was clearly was comfortable backing into our driveway, getting out the car, and was like, I'm here to see, and gave him my name. And so he was like, she's not here. Is there something I can help you with? And the guy was like, nah, it's cool. And then just got in the car and drove off. So, again, brain is like, who could this be? So then Legion says to me, you know what? The way that you reacting to this is real suspect. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, you over here freaking out. I told you I took care of it. I told you it was fine. And you over here freaking out, which makes me wonder, what have you been up to? Now, let's go to part 19.